Tonight on CTV News, brazen daylight killing.
It's horrific. It's a senseless act. We're dealing with many emotions.
A mother of two is fatally attacked in a parking lot. Her ex-partner charged. What we're learning about his past.
It is a warning to other facilities, but this has come up in previous boards of investigations.
New details on how notorious serial killer Robert Pickton was murdered in prison. Not the first time the makeshift weapon was used behind bars.
The Canadian Infrastructure Bank that is now putting money below market rates to push jobs that could have happened here in Canada.
Navigating rough waters, politicians take a closer look at federal financing for a Chinese company to build BC ferries.
This is CTV News with Mi Jung Lee.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with a brutal attack on a mother of two that left her dead. The brazen daytime violence erupted on Friday over the lunch hour in a Kelowna parking lot. The man charged with her death is her ex-husband. The victim's family is now questioning why the accused was released from custody just minutes after being convicted in a domestic violence case. CTV's Shannon Patterson has our top story.
32-year-old Bailey McCourt's 9 and 3-year-old daughters were her pride and joy.
Those girls are the most important thing in our life.
After breaking up with her youngest daughter's father, James Plover, McCourt's family says she told them she feared for her life and the courts weren't protecting her.
She was frustrated, scared, and felt unsupported.
Last Friday, a Kelowna judge convicted Plover of 4 counts of assault by choking and uttering threats in a domestic violence case, but he wasn't held in custody. That same day, Plover allegedly attacked McCourt and her colleague with a hammer, killing his estranged wife in a parking lot. After a brief pursuit, he was arrested and charged with second-degree murder.
If that doesn't constitute first-degree murder, then I don't know what does. It's horrific. It's a senseless act. We're dealing with many emotions, and one of them is anger, right? And have a lot of questions about, how many more times this story is going to air before we're able to effect change.
The family questions why Plover was allowed to walk out of the Kelowna courthouse moments after his convictions in the domestic violence case.
The anger comes from not understanding how we ended up here.
This case, because of what we know around lethality and the potential for femicide, was screaming red flags for years. And it's jarring to see the system fail so spectacularly. And now we have a woman dead and children without their mother.
I mean, this is horrific to imagine that this happened in the middle of the afternoon in Kelowna. An example of the kind of violence against women we're seeing.
The Premier says he's pushing for bail reform, and the province is working on implementing recommendations in a new report on how to better help victims of domestic violence.
Dr. Kim Stanton's report is a blueprint for action that can be taken.
I'm not sure what sort of reform is going to take, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I also don't want to take away accountability of this individual that committed this.
The McCourt family launched a GoFundMe for the ongoing care of Bailey's 2 little girls.
Everyone that's made a donation, it's very appreciative. Our family obviously needs some stability and surround those little girls with love. They have an extremely difficult path ahead of them.
A path without their mother, whose young life was cut short by violence. Shannon Patterson, CTV News.
He's one of Canada's most reviled serial killers, and he died after being assaulted in prison last year. Now an investigation into Robert Pickton's death is complete, but it comes with new questions. Our Penny Daflos has the story and a warning. Some of the details are graphic and disturbing.
For years, his name has inspired loathing and anger.
He was a monster, and he took my mother's life.
And when former Port Coquitlam pig farmer Robert Willie Pickton died after being attacked in a Quebec prison last year, his victims' families felt a range of emotions.
I felt very uplifted, actually.
How the 74-year-old serial killer could be fatally injured in a maximum security prison was an open question.
The Correctional Service has a process in place to review all of these circumstances.
That review is now complete. The Board of Investigation interviewed 35 staff and reviewed surveillance video, finding prisoners had easy access to cleaning supplies. The report confirmed what victims' families were told last year by their lawyer about an assault by a fellow inmate.
We broke a broom handle, and when you break something like a broom handle, you always get a sharp end. So he took the sharp end and he put it up into his skull.
This is not the first time somebody has broken a broomstick and used it as a weapon.
Mark Kemble was Pickton's warden when he was imprisoned at the Kent Institution in Agassiz.
His contact with other offenders was minimal to none, mostly with staff.
The review found poor record keeping around Pickton and his attackers' behavior and interactions at the Port Cartier Institution. Kemble says that and the broom access also endangered staff and should be a wake-up call.
It is a warning to other facilities, but this has come up in previous boards of investigations. So my question would be, what was the policy at the time related to those types of materials? And did CSC follow them?
The Correctional Service of Canada stated all recommendations have been accepted and work is underway to implement them as we work towards making our institutions safer for all our employees, inmates, and visitors. No one has been charged yet in Pickton's killing, which is a grim irony. Pickton himself was convicted of murdering 6 women, but never stood trial for the 43 others he was suspected of killing. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Vancouver.
More fallout tonight over the decision by BC Ferries to buy 4 new vessels from a government-owned shipbuilder in China. A federal committee is launching a study into the $1 billion loan that BC Ferries received from a Crown corporation. As CTV's Rob Buffum reports, key players will have to testify.
The controversy around BC Ferries contracting with a Chinese state-run company to build 4 new vessels for its aging fleet continues to create rough seas.
We need to find out if the Carney government is on Team Canada or Team China.
A bipartisan federal transport committee Monday voted unanimously to hold a hearing into the $1 billion low-interest loan provided by the Canada Infrastructure Bank, a Crown corporation, to BC Ferries to buy the boats. The CEO of BC Ferries, the head of the bank, and federal transport and infrastructure ministers will testify at the hearing.
Rather than building up Canada, we actually have them outsourcing Canadian jobs at a time where our aluminum and steel producers are under unjustified attack.
Victoria Liberal MP Will Greaves supports the review, but is urging the committee to resist playing politics.
Encourage my colleagues to stop using BC Ferries and BC coastal communities as a punching bag to make points that we have heard before and which, frankly, do not serve Canadians.
The Premier today reiterated his disappointment that BC Ferries went with a Chinese company, but diverted his focus to frustration with federal subsidies for ferries in Atlantic Canada.
An unequal ferry system where users in Atlantic Canada are heavily subsidized at a rate of 300 to 1 compared to users of the BC ferry system.
BC Ferries stating again that no Canadian company bid on the project. Chinese shipbuilders make 2/3 of the vessels globally. A European company would have cost $1.2 billion more. Also saying in a statement, the low-interest loan from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank ultimately saves BC Ferries customers and or BC taxpayers up to $650 million in this project. Seaspan, BC's major shipbuilder, has said it wasn't in a position to bid on the contract, but wants to be part of future bids. The opposition, BC Conservatives, say the whole plan should be scrapped.
Take a step back, cancel the contract, and actually get back to the table in terms of building out capacity in BC.
Rob joins us live from Victoria. Rob, when will the hearing take place?
Well, Mi Jung, that is set to be taking place in the next 30 days. As for those 4 new vessels, the first one of those to be complete will be in the water by 2029. Mi Jung.
Rob Buffum reporting live tonight from Victoria. People living near the Kelowna airport are being allowed to return to their homes this hour after being under evacuation order for 24 hours. A wildfire that erupted yesterday afternoon is now considered held. But as CTV's Ben Milger reports, authorities say it's a reminder for everyone in fire-prone areas to always be prepared.
air tankers quickly flew into action, dropping fire retardant between a fast-growing wildfire and nearby homes in the Ellison area of Kelowna. After erupting Sunday afternoon, it disrupted flights at the nearby airport, forced the evacuation of 7 homes, and left 100 more under evacuation alert. The fire quickly grew to 4.9 hectares in size, but as of Monday morning, it is classified as being held.
Fire behavior is currently at rank 1, which means a smoldering ground fire. So we are expecting to see some smoke throughout the day, but crews are able to get a hold on it.
In response, the regional district opened its emergency operations center to help coordinate evacuation orders and alerts. Although crews managed to get the upper hand before any structures were damaged, authorities say it should serve as a reminder to everyone in fire-prone parts of the province.
These fires can start at any moment and can spread quite quickly. And so just continuing to remind people to have their grab-and-go bags ready, make sure their insurance policies are up to date, make sure they understand their insurance policies.
Near Lytton, the Eisman Creek fire has now devoured nearly 250 hectares as it burns out of control. A dozen properties remain under evacuation order or alert as close to 70 firefighters battle the blaze in challenging conditions.
Today does kind of mark the beginning of a warming and drying trend, so we are seeing our temperatures start to increase in this area and our relative humidity level start to decrease.
In total, more than 80 fires are burning across BC, with a stretch of hot, dry weather creating the potential for even more ignitions. Ben Milger, CTV News, Vancouver.
There's new hope for a young girl on Vancouver Island whose life-saving drug treatments were cut off by the province last month. 9-year-old Charlie Pollock suffers from Batten disease, a rare and fatal brain disorder that was being treated with a drug called Brineura. 3 weeks ago, the province halted Charlie's coverage, citing a report from Canada's drug agency that determined the drug was no longer helping her. Batten disease experts met with BC's health minister Friday in hopes of reversing that decision.
This is a poorly informed, poorly researched and unethical decision. And Charlie is still benefiting well from this medicine, and to have it taken away is effectively like a controlled euthanasia.
She says Health Minister Josie Osborne plans to present new evidence she's learned about the disease and treatment to her own committee for review. Charlie is now 5 days past her regularly scheduled bi-weekly infusion, and every day she's off Brineura could be doing irreversible damage. A notorious cliff-jumping spot on Vancouver Island has claimed the life of a local teenager. RCMP responded to an area of Comox Lake known as Devil's Ladder at around 9:45 on Saturday night after receiving reports that a young boy had jumped into the water and failed to resurface. Nearby paddleboarders performed CPR on the teen immediately before firefighters took over. Unfortunately, the boy was pronounced dead in hospital. While the incident remains under investigation, authorities say there's no evidence that criminality was involved. Police in Kamloops have identified the man who went missing in the Thompson River yesterday afternoon as an international student in his 20s. Emergency crews were called to Overlander Park after reports that a man entered the river to retrieve a volleyball, got caught in the undercurrent, and didn't resurface. More than a dozen search and rescue crews are helping police in the search. Anyone driving in Vancouver may soon be forced to change their driving habits. The city is looking at reducing speed limits in over 24 neighborhoods to reduce injuries and save lives. CTV's Isabella Zaffarisi explains.
It's already common in school zones where drivers must slow down to 30 kilometers per hour. Now, the city of Vancouver wants the lower speed limit applied to more residential streets.
Right now, if you're driving 50 kilometers an hour down this mellow side street, you would look like a psycho, but you would be within the law.
On Wednesday, council will vote on a report that recommends speed limits be reduced from 50 to 30 on side streets. If approved, 25 neighborhoods will be included in the 3-year rollout.
If you're hit by a car traveling 50 kilometers an hour, the chances of survival are quite low. You have an 80% chance of a grievous bodily injury or death. If you're hit by a car traveling at 30 kilometers an hour, the entire metrics change and the chances of survival are very high. So that's the impetus and the science behind this.
The issue is personal to Councillor Pete Fry, whose friend was hit by a car on Pryor Street in Strathcona.
That galvanized me to take action for this neighborhood. And ultimately, it was one of the first motions I brought forward as a councillor when I got elected in 2018, really following through on that commitment to Paul, who lost his life on Pryor Street.
The report is part of the city's Vision Zero road safety strategy to eliminate all traffic-related deaths and injuries. City Councillor Lucy Maloney is tabling her own motion, asking staff to go even farther.
We certainly haven't achieved it yet. We need to change something to make sure that we don't lose lives on our roads.
According to Maloney, many of those hurt or killed in car crashes are seniors.
We know that when we reduce crossing distances, we install flashing pedestrian beacons, we install raised crosswalks. When we do things like that, it saves the lives of seniors in our community.
The goal, the councillors say, is that by making this change, streets can be safer for everyone. Isabella Zavarisi, CTV News, Vancouver.
3 drivers in North Vancouver had their vehicles impounded over the weekend for excessive speeding. Photos shared by the RCMP show they were caught speeding up to 147 kilometers an hour. Each driver was also issued a fine of $368. 30 students from California are in BC this week, not for a taste of Canadian culture, but Canadian crime.
They're starting today with investigating a crime scene. They're looking for all sorts of evidence, and then the evidence that we've planted for them in this mock crime scene is a sampling of the types of courses, the types of technologies we teach in our courses at BCIT.
BCIT kicked off its annual 2-week forensic field school day today with a mock crime scene investigation. After investigating the staged suspicious death, students will proceed on to lab work and legal training. The program helps American students gain a Canadian perspective on forensic science that could be helpful in work on transnational crimes. Vancouver's role as host city for the 2026 FIFA World Cup will delay BC Supreme Court operations, according to the Chief Justice. The Premier was questioned today about the tournament's impact on criminal trials.
When you're talking about the court system specifically, this can be a very sensitive area for disruption. People have a right to a trial in a certain fixed amount of time. We have to hit those targets. In fact, we're best in Canada for hitting those targets, but we've got more work to do to make sure that every single trial gets to court on time. And we'll work with the court to make sure that we address any concerns that they may have.
The Chief Justice explained that all criminal trials and jury trials that were set to take place in the Lower Mainland between June 12th and July 8th next year will have to be rescheduled. He says the delays are unavoidable due to the tournament's draw on police resources. BC is boosting support for its fast-growing tech sector, the province announcing today that it's increasing the interactive digital media tax credit.
We're moving the credit from 17.5% to 25%. We're moving it from a temporary credit to permanent to ensure that our gaming sector, that our interactive digital media sector is the most competitive in the world.
The credit applies to eligible labor costs for video game and virtual reality development. The increase is part of the province's push to attract and retain top tech talent. BC's video game industry employs more than 20,000 people and adds more than $1 billion to the province's GDP every year.
A team member.
Is the beloved Stanley Park train on track to return to operation anytime soon? When the park board will know its future. Also ahead.
This is an issue that we have a good, solid understanding of what's going on.
Environmentalists are slamming Ottawa for not following up on recommendations to help the dwindling number of southern resident killer whales. How low their numbers have fallen. When CTV News continues, stay with us. A lack of action from the federal government is contributing to the decline in the southern resident killer whale population. That's according to a new report released today by a panel of independent scientists. The group, consisting of more than 30 experts from organizations like the Raincoast Conservation and David Suzuki Foundations, met in Vancouver in March. They created a roadmap of 26 recommendations to save the endangered species. Protecting orcas' main food source, Chinook salmon was identified as a top priority, as was reducing vessel noise and phasing out legacy chemicals.
This isn't a huge issue like climate change with the gigantic expense and the cooperation of, of all the countries on Earth to bring about solutions. This is an issue that we have a good, solid understanding of what's going on, and the measures to resolve the issue are not particularly complicated. They're not outside of our reach.
The scientists acknowledged the complexities of policy implementation, but emphasized that many of the recommendations are ready to implement now without the need for further study. The southern resident killer whale population has declined to 73 with no sign of recovery. The Vancouver Park Board will be getting an update on the future of the Stanley Park train tonight. A presentation from staff on the train will be put forward tonight. However, exact details on what it will be about have not been revealed. Back in April, the board halted the Easter train event after mechanical issues were discovered. At the time, staff said a report would be brought forward in the summer to determine the future of the beloved attraction. And Stephanie Florian's in for Anne, and you've taken the boys on the train, right?
I sure have, and it is such a legendary attraction. We need to hold on to it.
Yeah, I know. We did the Christmas train, haven't done the scary Halloween train. Did you
It's a little scary. Well, at least for toddlers it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hopefully they can get it back on track.
Yes. But the weather out there, not scary at all. In fact, we are still holding on to the mercury. Look at these temperatures right now for your Monday night. Not a bad end or start to the weekend of the day, start to the work week, but changes in the air, actually. We're going to have a clear night tonight, absolutely gorgeous, a little bit above seasonal as far as temperatures. Tomorrow, we're going to be right on track for temperatures. However, increasing clouds throughout the daytime, and we are expecting some rain into the evening.
CTV Weather brought to you by Expedia Cruises. Make the most of your next trip by booking with those who've been there. Visit expediacruises.ca.
So you are going to want to hide and cover the patio furniture because it's been out for a while. So I've got more details coming up with your full forecast.
Yeah, haven't heard the rain word for a while, but it's good to hear that.
Very good.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. A Vancouver city councillor is pushing to ban carburetors because they cost millions of dollars in sewage repairs. Also ahead, Texas tragedy.
Everyone here, if we could have warned them, we would have done so.
Questions about who received alerts about flooding that has killed more than 100 people. Dramatic images of just how quickly the water rose. That's ahead. An urgent search is underway for survivors in Texas after more than 100 people were killed in deadly flash flooding. That includes dozens of children and their counselors at a Christian summer camp. CTV's Adrian Gobriel has more on the tragedy and criticism over Washington's response.
As the search for survivors intensifies, the full scale of this deadly disaster is coming into focus. This footage shares a glimpse of just some of the 850 life and death high water rescues that took place. Hundreds of state and federal first responders and more than a dozen canine units are on the ground, including volunteers on foot and horseback.
If it was my babies, I'd want somebody looking, so that's why I'm here.
Dozens of children have been confirmed dead, with another 10 campers and one counselor, as of this morning, still missing from Camp Mystic, a Christian girls' camp.
I've lost near friends, best friends, my boss, my godchildren, my house, my car.
The camp, perched along the Guadalupe River, saw floodwaters rise 8 meters in just 45 minutes. 2 hours north in Kingsland, Texas, this time lapse shows just how quickly floodwaters rose.
You know that your child is going to be swimming and canoes and horseback riding and doing archery and making lifetime friends. And then suddenly it turns to tragedy.
With the National Weather Service saying their flood warnings were timely and accurate, questions about weather alerts reached those most at risk remain, with the mayor of Kerrville, Texas, admitting he never received one.
Everyone here, if we could have warned them, we would have done so. And We didn't even have a warning. We did not know.
The city manager of Kerrville asked today why an evacuation order wasn't issued.
It's very tough to make those calls because what we also don't want to do is cry wolf.
An answer that will bring little comfort to those who've lost so much.
With the U.S. president signing a major disaster declaration for Kerr County, Texas, Federal Emergency Management Agency resources have been deployed as ongoing discussions to close down FEMA are still taking place, according to a White House spokesperson today. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Washington.
British officials gathered in London today to mark 20 years since the 2005 London transit bombings.
Hope is optimism with a broken heart. In the face of tragedy, optimism fails, but hope presents itself as a survival tool.
52 people were killed and nearly 800 others were injured in the deadliest attack on the British capital since the Second World War. The suicide bombings were carried out by 4 men inspired by al-Qaeda. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and London Mayor Sadiq Khan laid wreaths at a memorial in Hyde Park to mark the occasion. King Charles was also present for a commemoration at St. Paul's Cathedral. An Australian woman has been found guilty of murdering 3 of her estranged husband's relatives by deliberately serving them poisonous mushrooms for lunch. The jury in the Supreme Court trial returned a verdict against Aaron Patterson after 6 days of deliberations. Patterson faces life in prison and will be sentenced at a later date. 3 of her 4 victims, her parents-in-law and her husband's aunt, died in the hospital after the 2023 meal when she served beef Wellington pastries containing death cap mushrooms. A strange bee attack in France has left dozens of people injured and sent 3 people to hospital in critical condition. Authorities in the French town of Aurillac say emergency crews rushed to the scene and set up a security perimeter until the bees stopped swarming. One senior was stung 25 times. The town's mayor says the incident may be connected to Asian hornets threatening local beehives. Crowds packed the streets in northern Spain today to kick off the Festival of San Fermin. Today marked the start of 9 days of uninterrupted partying. The festival's highlight is the famed bull run each morning, which will start tomorrow. It draws more than 1 million people to the city of Pamplona each year. The controversial event has also attracted protests over the years, including today from animal activists over what they call animal cruelty. How airlines are adapting to changing travel patterns. Some domestic routes are being expanded. Also ahead, Canadians detained south of the border.
Yeah, it's really horrible for her. Horrible. You say they punish people for nothing.
Her daughter is one of 50 Canadians caught in the immigration crackdown in the U.S. She's been in ICE custody since April. What led to her detainment ahead. A manhunt is underway after an escaped convicted killer is believed to cross the border from Quebec into Ontario. Staff at a minimum security prison north of Montreal discovered 69-year-old Laurie Bilgerma was missing late Saturday. He was found guilty of first-degree murder in 1992. At least 3 other inmates have escaped from this institution in the last 16 months. Corrections Canada, though, says these incidents are rare. Roughly 50 Canadians have been caught in the immigration crackdown south of the border. One has died in custody, leaving the families of others worried about their loved one.
She's scared too much. She's scared. And she's saying, Mommy, I'm asking, but please let me go, let me go. Like, why keep her there?
She says her daughter, Paula Colejas of Montreal, had been working to finalize U.S. work visa for her swimwear business when she was arrested for misdemeanor in Florida. She was handed over to ICE and has been in custody for more than 3 months. Her family isn't sure where she's being held. The premiers of Alberta and Ontario have signed agreements aimed at breaking down international trade barriers and limiting the damage caused by U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war. The pair signed 2 memorandums of understanding to advance energy infrastructure and support the automotive and alcohol manufacturing sectors. The agreements include a feasibility study for new pipelines and rail lines between the 2 provinces. They come as provinces look to strengthen economic ties in the face of U.S. tariffs. But there is some skepticism over whether these agreements are the answer.
I think Canadians need to be wary, and they need to be cautious anytime they see a government saying they're doing something to respond to a national emergency.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford has said that free trade between all provinces will add more than $200 billion to Canada's economy. But the report where that estimate originated represents the maximum possible gains from fully eliminating all internal trade barriers in Canada, something even the author is doubtful can happen. The Trump administration is pressuring U.S. trade partners to make a deal as he gives himself more time to reach agreements. Trump started sending out letters to governments around the world today, threatening high tariffs in the absence of trade agreements. But he also signed an executive order delaying threatened tariffs that were set to take effect Wednesday until August 1st. Canada was not targeted by those global tariffs and is still facing a July 21st deadline to reach some sort of bilateral deal with the U.S. As fewer Canadians fly south in response to U.S. tariffs, airlines are adapting to changing travel patterns. WestJet has added direct flights to Halifax and Deer Lake, Newfoundland from major cities across the country. Air Canada has also expanded its schedule across the East Coast. And Porter now flies daily between Charlottetown and Toronto. The airline says it's seeing 20% more domestic bookings from June through August compared to 2024.
We go where the demand is. The overall PEI market is newer to us, but we've been able to grow our presence in there because people have tried us over the years and they want to keep trying us on all the markets they can.
In June, Stats Canada data showed Canadian return trips from the U.S. fell for 5 straight months. Some BC gems to explore for free with the Canada Strong Pass. Also ahead, should carburetors be banned? The millions they're costing Metro Vancouver taxpayers. What a Vancouver City Councillor is pushing for. That's ahead. There are calls to pull the plug on carburetors. Why one Vancouver City Councillor says they're bad for the environment and costly for taxpayers. We'll have that story right after the forecast. But first, it was an election promise to help Canadians explore their own backyard this summer. The Canada Strong Pass is out and includes free admission to national parks and historic sites. One expert is highlighting some gems you should check out, including BC's Yoho National Park.
That is where some of those postcard picture, spots such as Emerald Lake, Takaka Falls. From Yoho, you can actually do Burgess Shale hikes as well to view, that's Takaka Falls there.
Wow.
Pretty stunning and amazing hiking opportunities for sure.
Other spots include Glacier National Park near Revelstoke and the Fort St. James National Historic Site in northern BC. You can see the full list of must-visit spots at ctvmorninglive.ca. And Stephanie's here. I have not heard of that Fort St. James historic site. I love places like Fort Langley and stuff, so that would be definitely one on my bucket list.
Yeah, so many places to explore. We just need more time
That's
off.
true. You could spend your whole life and not see the whole province, right?
But BC, the West is the best. Come on, BC has got so much to explore, so that's a wonderful gift that everyone's getting. So take advantage of that. Warm and dry tonight for us here on the South Coast, Lower Mainland. Gorgeous evening, about 10 to 12 20 millimeters we'll be seeing tonight for areas around the north coast. Hotspot today was Lytton for Canada at 34.1 degrees. Record was from 1931. Not much of a difference between the record at 35.6 and what we saw today as far as temperatures. So heavy rain, that is pounding, and that is going to continue in through the day tomorrow. Even some thunderstorm activity sliding down the coast. North Vancouver Island going to see that rain heavy at times around Port Hardy. I will show you your full forecast. In central interior sections, southern interior is going to be staying dry. We are going to be seeing a lot of rainfall coming in. So here's a look at these totals: 32, 20. This is 8. This only takes us in through the beginning of the evening tomorrow, which is when it's going to start, but it is going to track in through Thursday. So we do have rain on deck. We need it, and then summer will be back. Don't worry. Heavy rain at Campbell River and Comox, 20 degrees. So still holding on to that heat tomorrow. Cooler in Tofino at 19 degrees, 15, 19 in Port Alberni. Likely going to skirt the system around areas around Victoria. So not much in the way of rainfall for that area, for Victoria, but we will be seeing the Sunshine Coast, gray skies, showers tomorrow, and then it'll be an evening event for us. And our temperatures are going to hold on to the heat for one more day, and as that rain moves in, we'll be seeing a drop in temperatures, a little bit below seasonal actually for several days, and then Friday in through the weekend, the sunshine is back, the heat is on, and we'll be drying out, but we do need this rain desperately. CTV Weather is brought to you by Expedia Cruises for air, land, and sea vacations.
Yeah, so it's strange just having this little blip of rain for 2 days and then it's gone, right?
We will take it.
Yeah, we'll take whatever rain we can get.
We really do. The province needs it, so let's enjoy.
And good reminder to cover the patio furniture.
Yes, I always forget and then I'm running out.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Carburetors could soon be a thing of the past. In Vancouver, the city is considering making them illegal in all new construction projects. Other cities have already done this, and it's not the first time it's been debated here. CTV's St. John Alexander with the details.
Wouldn't it be fun to never have to wrap a bit of garbage?
Once highly fashionable, in fact, like a television set, all the good homes had one.
This wonderful appliance is completely out of your way.
Now, decades later, they're not considered so swell. And a motion before Vancouver City Council argues they should be scrapped altogether. In new homes, that is.
It doesn't just disappear down the drain. It actually costs us, and it costs us all.
Put forward by Councillor Pete Fry. He points to the strain they put on our treatment plants. It's not just fruit and veg that are plunged, but lots of fatty bits that are creating big, ugly bits called fatbergs.
If we can mitigate and minimize the amount of organic material that has to be screened and removed from the system, it's probably a good thing for us in the long run.
Cities all over North America have already turfed them. Raleigh in North Carolina, one of the first, and at the time, not a popular move.
I've heard the word dictatorship used. People in Garner are using it. They even refer to it as a big brother mentality.
People were putting the wrong things down, and that caused frequent sewage overflows.
Will do their part to let the customers know when they come in to buy these that they're banned.
In Metro Vancouver, banning disposal units has been debated several times over several years, but it never really picked up steam, possibly because they're not as fashionable, there aren't as many, and people have taken to composting.
But there was a lot of pushback from the industry at the time, and because it was coming up on election year, I think the council had cold feet and they backed off.
Even so, council will decide this week whether to ban carburetors or toss the idea once again. St. John Alexander, CTV News, Vancouver.
Ahead, we tell you why drivers on one stretch of highway are in for a musical treat. Plus, Bradley's board. Adam meets a North Saanich man who's realized a big dream on an electric board. Coming up on the Sawatsky sign-off. Right now, here's a preview of CTV Morning Live.
It's definitely shorts weather, but it's not a time of year everyone is comfortable with. Tuesday on CTV Morning Live, why warmer temperatures can actually lead to body insecurities and how you can better navigate this stressful time. And what can and can't be recycled in BC. We'll highlight the common mistakes people with good intentions make. We'll see you in the morning.
News, weather, and traffic. It's everything you need. CTV Morning Live, weekdays 6 to 9.
It's the end of the line for a once popular Canadian chocolate bar. Jersey milk bars were first developed by dairy brand William Nielsen in 1924 and only produced in Canada. But production dropped after a series of acquisitions. A spokesperson for the company says the decision to drop the Jersey bar came after a review showed that consumers prefer buying other pure milk chocolate bars. She also says the end of production will not result in any job cuts. A friendly feud between Canadian bakers is heating up after a group of Ontario kids claimed the record for the world's biggest Nanaimo bar in response to an attempt by university students in the dessert's namesake city.
You can't take away from the fact the official recipe is from Nanaimo and the birthplace is Nanaimo. So as far as I'm concerned, it's always going to be Nanaimo bar and Nanaimo, not Nanaimo bar in some other community.
Nanaimo students baked an 1,100-pound bar back in May, unofficially beating the 2020 record of 500 pounds. Weeks later, the Ontario family behind the original record built a 1,200-pound bar, though they have no plans to submit this one to Guinness. I guess they're not that serious about it if they're not calling Guinness.
And I don't get why they aren't calling Guinness.
I know.
Really. Why make it if you're not going to get in the world record?
True, it's a lot of work to build that kind of...
Because it's got to be in Nanaimo.
Exactly, the record should be in Nanaimo. Anyways, okay, rumble strips usually alert drivers to potential hazards, but on this road in the United Arab Emirates, they can also play some classical music. The sounds coming from that highway are Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. The ridges in the road, plus the car's speed, give drivers the chance to turn their commute into a symphonic experience. The so-called singing shoulder has become a social media sensation, bringing visitors to a lesser-known part of the country. Interesting. So it's become a tourist draw now.
Well, it keeps you alert and engaged, I guess. On the road?
Isn't the strip supposed to keep you away from that, though?
That's what
it would
I
encourage
thought.
me to want to drive on that.
Okay, Kevin has a look ahead to your late local news. What's coming up, Kevin?
Well, Meejung Police in Langley are investigating reports of a shooting this afternoon at 200th Street and 66th Avenue. There's a police presence. We will bring you the latest on that. And also, the Stanley Park train is up for debate. Presentation is going to be put forth at the park board meeting tonight. Mechanical issues have become more common, forcing the incredibly popular ride to shut down. Costly repairs have made it a money pit as well. Tonight we'll learn more on the train's future. Will it electrify? That is the big question. The park board has suggested that it needs to electrify in order for it to come back. So we perhaps will find out tonight.
Yeah, I think the public just wants it back in some form, right?
We do.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Well, it is not the most efficient way to travel, but that did not stop one North Saanich man from skateboarding more than 1,500 kilometers. Adam finds out what inspired the unconventional and record-breaking journey across Western Canada on this encore Sawatsky sign-off.
When Bradley Smith began this journey, he was filled with fear.
Huge bout of nervousness.
Sure, he'd gone backcountry snowboarding with his friends, even tried electric skateboarding with his cat, but this was something he was doing in honor of his dad.
He drove a lot of what I do in my life.
And when his dad recently died from cancer, Bradley felt compelled to pursue a dream he hadn't previously made time for.
Take advantage, because it could be all taken away in the snap of a finger, right?
So, Bradley decided to try and break a few Guinness records while attempting to travel from the middle of Saskatchewan to the west coast of BC on an electric skateboard alone.
From Saskatoon, right out of the gates, I got hit with really heavy wind.
Winds up to 70 kilometers an hour, Bradley says, that quickly drained his board's battery and persistently tried to push him off balance.
That was the hardest challenge by far of what I've ever done with any adventure.
Although everyone he encountered said June doesn't usually see so much wind or rain or that tornado warning, Bradley says the month has always included both his dad's birthday and Father's Day.
He was with me the whole way. Oh yeah, he guided me through all of the horrible weather that I was out there and all of the great times.
Woo! But the greatest times, it turns out, were not the moments he unofficially beat 2 world records, including longest journey on an electric skateboard after traveling more than 1,500 kilometers. The best moments were meeting so many strangers turned friends along the way.
It was great. I loved it. I loved every second of it.
And because of that, he knows his dad couldn't have been more proud.
I'm going to live every drop of this life as best I can.
Because if you don't want to spend time with your regrets, Bradley's learned you have to make time for your dreams. Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, North Saanich.
Quite the journey. Have you ever been on an e-skateboard?
Nope.
No, I've never even skateboarded before.
In your whole life?
No.
Okay.
It's not my thing either. I don't like cement. Rather fall into snow or water.
I'm probably too uncoordinated, too.
Okay, here's an amazing photo from a great trail, doing a little trailblazing in Summerlin. Thank you to Kathleen Murray for sending that. If you'd like to send us your scenic snapshot, email us at scenicsnapshot@ctv.ca.
Yeah, beautiful part of the province.
Sure is.
All right, thanks for joining us. Kevin's back at 11:30. Good night.
Good night.
See you later.